I don't believe that there's this sort of group of globetrotting experts that can tell us how to live our lives, that can, who can tell us which industry should go up and which should go down, what cars we should drive and what words we should speak and how our money should be spent.
The fact that no one in the Liberal Party or even their supporters can see how absolutely embarrassing this is, I want to say leaves me at a loss for words, but I'm also quite upset and frustrated over it. So that kind of, cancels out the loss for words, because it turns out I have a lot of thoughts on this subject matter. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, and comment your thoughts down below. Mark Carney came out of hiding today and immediately got grilled, and then also called Pierre Poilievre dangerous. And there's some things happening right now within the Liberal Party that really makes you question their morality and question who exactly it is they are aligned with, because I don't think it's the general public of Canada anymore. Mark Carney might want to go back into that hole, by the way, after some more details have emerged about his relationship with China. That one that he said doesn't exist. I don't know who those guys are. This is a very juicy episode, and I have a lot of opinions on it.
Yes, because this is now goes to the question of what is the tone inside that Liberal war room that people are out pulling stunts like this. And frankly, I think Mr. Carney's response, well, there was no response from Mr. Carney. There was a response on behalf of the campaign. Is this the kind of campaign that they want to do? And how many of the other sort of Trumpy things that have been going on in this campaign will be traced back to the Liberal war room? I don't think we have a clear picture of that yet. Campaigns are rough contest between two competitive teams here, but there's just no excuse for this sort of thing. And I was a bit surprised the Liberals didn't cut loose whoever was involved in this sort of thing.
I really don't know what part about Buttongate is more outrageous to me. The fact that Mark Carney claims he's running a positive campaign. What? Or the fact that the two people involved in distributing these buttons to mislead, lie, and create propaganda for people to use against the Conservative Party were not fired. No, they were simply given a new job.
Since the Wednesday night incident, the Conservative supporters who showed up at a Brampton, Ontario rally on Wednesday with the T-shirts and the signs, "Do you believe the polls?" sowing doubt, distrust of the polling results that have the Liberals ahead of the Conservatives in many races. That's dangerous. I mean, the next day...
Could somebody please clarify to me what is dangerous about private citizens voicing their opinion on something based on there not being an accurate reflection of what they are seeing and hearing versus what they are being told to believe? I don't personally know what the danger is in that at all, actually. And it's not even remotely close. And it's funny how they try to paint it that way inside of that CBC clip there, because they were trying to paint it in the same light as what the Liberals did. No, that's actually just nothing. There's no comparison there at all. One is private citizens, a small group of them who are questioning something. The other is an active, deliberate attempt to smear the Conservatives and plant evidence. What?
And Trump was on our minds and on our phones and on our television screens all week long. And I think that's the essential part. And then when they are getting a moment of airspace on their own, what is he doing? He's having a Trumpy-like talkback with a female reporter, Poilievre. Or he's holding giant rallies that evoke Trump, feel like Trump, smell like MAGA, and they actually have people with sweatshirts that say, "Don't believe the polls." Now, there's a confident message. Don't believe the polls. We're not losing. Don't measure the size of our vote. Measure the size of the hall. It's if this was supposed to be the week where they were making an adjustment and a move, it has not shown up.
Before I absolutely blow your mind with some of the things I have found about Mark Carney, Donald Trump, and China, of which I take no credit for, by the way. This reporting, all of this investigative work comes directly from Sam Cooper. He runs a website called The Bureau that is phenomenal. You can sign up to them. They have email newsletters and everything. And he has been the one who's been sounding the alarm on this for a very long time, actually. But before we get there, can we take a moment to just reflect how absolutely embarrassing it is that full-grown adults on public news channels are calling conservative supporters and the Conservative Party far right. MAGA. I've had 45-year-old women call me a maggot, which I presume is to mean maggot. Like, that is so cringy. And it reminds me so much, like, do you remember when Facebook first came out? And everybody's all excited, and I'm 28. So when that first happened, I was very young. And when I get those memories that will say, 12 years ago on Facebook, and it's a status that I wrote when I was a child, basically, I just feel nothing but embarrassed because it'll say things, as an example, like RAR, XOX, I like dinosaurs. I was emo. I don't know. It was a thing back then where we were obsessed with dinosaurs, I guess, and saying rawr. It was so embarrassing, though. But I see those and I'm like, oh, let's remove that from the internet. Why don't we? And just like mass delete all of these things whenever they come up. And I wonder if this Donald Trump rhetoric and narrative that liberals are running with will maybe be like the 10-year memory reminder from Facebook. Where 10 years from now, they're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I called that woman a maggot. What? Like, that's so embarrassing that was even in my vocab. Oh my gosh. Let's really break this down though. They are calling you a MAGA, a traitor, a far right for expressing your democratic right in preference of a perfectly legal democratic political party, and smearing the United States for doing the exact same thing. And they say, oh, it's such a threat to our democracy, even though I am actually attacking democracy right now because you didn't pick the guy that I liked. And even though it's in another country, I'm still going to shame you because you don't hate him as much as I do. Like, let's just really think about that one. Yeah, sure. Conservatives are negative and divisive, and you're right. Mark Carney is certainly running a very positive campaign, as he claims he is. Having to hear this level of childish behavior on the daily, though, was my least favorite part of high school. So it's very disappointing that the Liberal Party and mainstream media, predominantly CBC, has brought back that rhetoric. Though there's some new things coming to light now that, I think they might be doing it on purpose.
I believe that Mr. Carney is trying to get a free ride. He got a lot of momentum at the beginning of the campaign, and they tried to hide him as much as possible, which seems to be pretty easy because he seems to be quite preposterous. I believe that Canadians will do the same as Quebecers do, but they will make their own answers about it. It's not mine to interfere.
We have some absolutely epic footage coming up, by the way, from Pierre Poilievre in a recent interview, as well as some press conferences. But I did want to point you to this, because this is very, very important. A secret 2021 CSIS bulletin. By the way, CSIS gets less money from the federal government than CBC does, fun fact, warned that Chinese consular officials in Canada plan to interfere in future federal elections by portraying conservatives as Trump-like and anti-immigrant, aiming to turn Chinese Canadian voters against them. The strategy included fear-mongering about potential conservative policies that could harm Chinese students and immigrants. CSIS noted that Beijing viewed Chinese immigrants as relatively easy to manipulate to serve its geopolitical goals. And, as we now know, a further development here, liberal operatives were recently caught planting fake Stop the Steal buttons at a conservative event to paint Pierre Poilievre's campaign as extreme, an act eerily similar to the tactics outlined in the CSIS report.
I have absolutely no idea.
And China has been trying to mold public opinion involving Mr. Carney.
And China has shown incredible leadership.
Operations in China become more integrated internationally, and we need data to be able to flow.
We are aware of an information operation targeting the 45th general election on the social media platform WeChat.
In the United States, the FBI has taken this really, really seriously. They've arrested people, they've charged people. Nothing has happened here in this country.
And they just put 100% tariff on Canada, and Carney hasn't said a word.
One of the many strengths of China is their perspective.
We see China's leadership there in deployment of AI tech.
Talking weeks ago, took out an enormous $250 million loan for BlackRock from the Chinese government.
I have absolutely no idea.
So, as we can imagine, this is a pretty major revelation, especially given the fact that Mark Carney has said that he has no relation whatsoever to the Chinese Communist Party. No, I don't know anybody from those organizations that I was photographed with who wrote an entire op-ed about how my involvement with them was going to be so great for China-Canada relations. I don't know what you're talking about. And the whole time they've said, oh, foreign interference is such a threat from Russia and the conservatives, those are the guys. While also knowing about this report from CSIS that would have been sent to the Trudeau government, Mark Carney was advising them, by the way, around this same time frame, about foreign interference and foreign influence that is now actually being mirrored in domestic political campaigns, mirrored and hyped up by the federal funded CBC of all places.
Governor Pan, Governor Joe, distinguished guests, it's a great pleasure to join the BOAO Forum to offer a few reflections on the evolution of financial cooperation. In the spirit of BOAO, our priority for financial cooperation should be to work together to develop first voluntary guidelines and then formal standards in order to finance that transition. And this will clearly not be possible without Chinese leadership. I very much welcome the PBOC's leadership on transition finance in the G20, just as it led to the creation of the NGFS of central banks and supervisors. And I would very much welcome greater Chinese participation in GFANZ as authorities deem appropriate in order to shape this critical agenda.
I don't know what the end result is here. My brain theorizes two things: that either A, they're fully in on it, aware, and know exactly what's going on and are using it to their advantage, which would also make a lot of sense because Mark Carney doesn't want to build pipelines. He does want to have a green economy, which has been unproven throughout history. I just had an awesome interview with Desiree Fixler. She is a World Economic Forum and ESG whistleblower, if you want to check that out, where we talked about that at length. But statistically speaking, data speaking, there is absolutely no way in hell that you're ever going to grow your economy by not investing in your natural resources, which Carney reiterated again last night when he was on that French TV show that he was not going to be doing. And China benefits from that, by the way, because if you are ever curious about, man, where do all of those like clean, green energy tech things come from? They come from China. They are predominantly manufactured in China. So obviously, if you are pushing all of that stuff, you know that we do not have manufacturing for that in Canada. So you know you're getting it from China. And this has been Mark Carney's entire life, has been pushing net zero, climate change, the green agenda. That has been his everything. Obviously, he knows that I think it's like 92% of all of the products and equipment and stuff for solar panels, for windmills, are all manufactured in China. Or B, they got this CSIS report and they thought, dang, that's a pretty good idea, actually. We should use that against the conservatives in the upcoming election. You know, we already got our whole public into the elbows up mentality amidst the pandemic era. Let's just try that again and look at how successful it has been. Now, of course, this is an allegedly moment because who knows what the end results will be, but it certainly makes you wonder.
Well, first and foremost, free speech. I would repeal C-11. That's the censorship law, which gives extraordinary powers to the CRTC to control what content is seen, to boost certain types of content that they deem to be Canadian in nature, although there's no real definition of that, and then discourage other content. And I think that will, over time, be a surreptitious way of trying to manage the debate in favor of what the government wants people to see. I would repeal that entirely. We need to look at the internet and the rise of social media differently than this government. They think that having too many voices is a threat. I think it's an opportunity.
But it is a threat if you are looking for more control. I posted a video on Instagram and TikTok not terribly long ago where I had highlighted the very big differences between Anna Poilievre and Diana Carney. And of course, you know, that's not who's running for the country, but I do really think that it is so valuable to get to know the woman behind the man, so to speak, because you can learn a lot about that man if you get to know the woman. And as an example, Anna Poilievre has lived her entire life focusing on things that actually really matter, that are about empowerment and speaking up on really awful things that happen in the world and loving your country while also knowing when to call things out because something's gone awry. And it's about freedom, really. That's like everything she stands for is freedom. And Diana Carney, as an example, much similar to her husband and also their daughter Cleo, their entire life has been about control, government control. We want to have more control so that we can profit. That is the whole motivation behind GFANZ. That is the whole motivation behind all of this stuff. We don't want to unlock Canada's economy. We want to hinder it and have control over it so that we can charge carbon credits and these other things that help us, so that we can charge the carbon tax. Even though it doesn't work, it's more control on your life because, as they said, even with the carbon tax as an example, they wanted to essentially pressure you out of certain behavior. So they want to make it as inconvenient as possible so that you stop doing something. And today, those alliances and priorities were made so much clearer because Pierre Poilievre had said that he wants to crack down on crime. Great. I think every single person living in the real world agrees. And Mark Carney was asked about that. So was Jugmeat saying, I have to play you that clip too. And here was his response to it. And it just makes you think like, dude, who are you here for? Like, honestly, who are you protecting? Why is this your priority?
Pierre Poilievre announced today he would use the notwithstanding clause to push through his tough on crime agenda. Is there any case you'd invoke the clause to override the charter?
I think this is a very dangerous step. We have a charter of rights and fundamental freedoms in this country, and it's the responsibility, in my view, of the Prime Minister, of the Government of Canada to defend that charter, those fundamental rights and responsibilities and liberties that Canadians enjoy. Politicizing certain issues with respect to fundamental rights is a slippery slope.
Which is so bizarre coming from the guy who lies a lot and does not like being questioned about it and wants to ban social media platforms from Canada for mis and disinformation, even though they have community notes and fact checkers on those exact same platforms. And this, again, in response to Poilievre saying he wants there to be a 3-strike policy, for Poilievre saying that people shouldn't have house arrest, that they should repeal the bail policies that we have that have been disastrous. What is he even talking about? And who are you protecting? What about my fundamental right to be safe? No, that doesn't, you don't care about that one? Okay, cool.
As you say, I've followed all the rules. I've followed them in advance. I've disposed of my assets before I became Prime Minister. And have a blind trust. I have conflict of interest screens. I work only for the people of Canada. I work only for the people of Canada. Je travaille seulement pour des Canadiens.
Call me crazy, but I don't feel confident in that at all. I have like a pit in my stomach over it, actually, the more we learn. And speaking of which, here is Pierre Poilievre absolutely destroying some of the people that Mark Carney has spent his entire life working for.
No to the WEF, whereas he's heavily integrated into that. Why do you have such strong feelings on that, and how does that impact everyday Canadians?
I just think it's an organization that has a very top-down mentality. I don't believe in top-down. I don't believe that there's this sort of group of globe-trotting experts that can tell us how to live our lives, that can, who can tell us which industry should go up and which should go down, what cars we should drive and what words we should speak and how our money should be spent. I really believe in distributed decision-making, personal freedom, letting people live their own lives and chart their own course. The other thing I've found is that, I mean, I've been around politics a long time, so I've met a lot of these people who are considered part of the elite, and I talk to them and I ask them questions, and then I go out to my constituency and I talk to truck drivers and mechanics and farmers, and I find the latter group is actually smarter. Now, they don't use all the same fancy language, but if you ask them just sort of nuts and bolts type questions, they're smarter. Like, you know, Mr. Carney, for example, told us in 2021, don't worry about inflation. There won't be any inflation. We should print even more money. Well, he was totally wrong, like utterly wrong. You know, it's a jaw-dropping mistake, and with huge human consequences. In my riding, when the money printing started, the quantitative easing, I was getting farmers and small business owners saying, there's going to be inflation, there's going to be inflation.
Yeah.
So how is it these people who don't attend lectures and don't go to international summits knew more about the real functioning of the economy than all of these so-called experts? What I think is we need a government that's humble and leaves people their money, their freedom of choice, control of their lives, and lets them make their own decisions. And that's my philosophical difference with that group. And it's I believe in the common people.
The choice couldn't be clearer. And we're going to dive into that even more so in tomorrow's episode. I would have loved to talk about that today, but I'm trying to keep these videos short enough that you'll watch. So we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode. But truly, this election, it's either you're going to end up with a government who wants more control, or you're going to end up with a government who wants less government and therefore less control so that you can just live your life. They're going to take care of the books and the economy as they should. They're not going to be as involved in the personal goings on and in trying to change behaviors because one of their investors or one of their friends is, you know, benefits from selling, what the heck were those stupid things called? The heater thingy-mabobs in your house. I can't remember what those were called right now. Heat pumps. There we go. Because one of your friends benefits from heat pumps, or because your company invested in heat pumps. It's just so obvious, and yet people are still so stuck on what we discussed at the beginning of this episode regarding Trump. And it's devastating. It's really devastating to see the impact of that. And I can proudly, confidently say, as somebody who worked in media as a broadcaster for 11 years, I've never worked for the CBC, but I've been on CBC before, among other really mainstream channels. I would love to see the CBC get defunded. And it's not because I want people to lose their jobs, but it's because they're lying and because they're presenting biased news as though it's unbiased, which makes people trust you. And you're not trustworthy when you do that. It's a lie. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below, and give us a share if you feel like some of this information may be worthwhile to those in your life. And I will talk to you tomorrow.